I'd like now to invite the three of you to be ready to comment on each other's presentations. I know that you're coming from a diversity of standpoints, which really creates a good opportunity. After a little while, there are questions piling up in the chat room, so I'll also try to bring those to the table but first a chance for you if you'd like to comment. Christine, perhaps going first. You're ready to roll, I think. Christine Lai. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, Christine, you would like to say something?
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Rod, you would like us to comment on others or right?
On each other's, yes.
Each other's,
yes.
Right. Okay. I maybe to just now, Christine's on the borders and debordering in the 21st century. It is really eye-opening, Christine, because your research, especially to show we are not having that knowledge, and we may have certain misconception about not only borders but immigrants. We have a lot of judgment or maybe our biases, but then when you talked about actually the biggest asylums or is not the developing country, is the southern part. And so my question will be, the developing countries, they're economically, they may not be capable, but then there are some reasons, right, of absorbing the migrants from whether humanitarian perspective. I would like to know the reasons behind that, of these differences of developing countries versus actually developed countries, less absorbing the immigrants. That's number one. The number two is the benefits. I just typed it in the chat room, the benefits of migrants, like especially you mentioned about the younger generation, younger group of people can help certain country to bring advantages, benefits, not only economic, but many other aspects, especially while we are facing the aging population. So it seems that we should have more success stories or direction to advocate the benefits, especially in addressing the disparities of the world, and take it as a positive element. And for Chiaretto, I believe the disparities, especially in China, is go back to their fundamental development of the countries, but also the belief and values that I'd like to understand more of that. So far, yeah.
Who would
Next
like
one.
to go first?
Yeah.
Christine or for Chiaretto?
I'll be happy to go. I completely agree with everything you said, Christine.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are lots of benefits actually of more open borders and of populations on the move. And we have to tell different stories, you know. Unfortunately, the right-wing version of has sort of hijacked the public discourse on migration, but their stories are not evidence-based. You go to any think tank in Washington, D.C., and they have endless studies pointing to the benefits of migration. We need to get these stories out there because the evidence is there. To have open borders is beneficial. And why developing countries are actually hosting more refugees? Well, for one thing, it's proximity. So, you know, if you're a refugee in Burundi, you know, it's easy to get to Kenya than to get to the UK, right? But then why is Uganda, for instance, so progressive in terms of its refugee policies? What they do is they provide land plots to every refugee that comes into the country. So the refugee families can become self-reliant and then fish for themselves, like Dr. Jan said earlier, that they also want refugees to learn to fish for themselves. And I guess it's their ethics as well that somehow informs their much more integrative approach. And then possibly also ethnic relations provide more cohesiveness. So there might be there might be an ethnic group that's in Kenya and in Burundi and in Uganda, and so the borders don't matter as much, but the ethnic affiliation matters more. So helping your ethnic group is also very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
Chiaretto, could you unmute, please?
About the border issue or the disparity, I think the root problem is poverty or underdevelopment. So I think also with the China experience, which can contribute to building up infrastructure, I mean, to also these poor countries. China has benefited actually, you know, from globalization, international trade, and I think coming from a developing country, there are certain experiences that can be shared, and yeah, the values. No, answering Christine Lai's question. Yeah, as I mentioned, no, the Asian values of frugality, high saving, which is very much in contrast with this consumerism or individual, too much emphasis on individualism or profit consumerism. So I think the Asian culture can contribute, you know, and also included in the way of government is also a contribution. I think can be, there's contribution from Confucian value. That's why I mentioned how the China, although it's an atheist country, and yet somehow the system is characterized by Confucianism. Also guiding this, for example, in investing in education, no, 9 years free education, investing in university students and in research. These can be a guide, you know, so that it can develop a pool of talents, well educated. Just seeing the changes in these last few decades, I think it can be. There's some contributions there at a global level can be contributed. I also appreciate the talk of Christine Lai, you know, on spirituality of the aged, and I think many modern societies are you know going towards aging, you know, and this is very relevant on spirituality.
Chiaretto, it's not just societies which are aging. I feel it myself most days, especially in the mornings. And Franz Gassner has added a little reference. He's talking about an initiative in his home city of Austria where living together, where older people and families live together in the same housing projects. So he's given us the information to find that in English or in German. So that's something extra for us.
Yeah.
One of our commentators has asked if there could be more information from Professor Leuenberger in the area of softer borders, perhaps some more practical points around how would softer borders be administered, or the commentator asks, are you actually suggesting the dismantling of borders? What would you offer to that commentator?
Yeah, actually, with some of my colleagues, we actually published a book called In Favor of Open Borders. So, I mean, there's definitely research that shows that economically it doesn't actually make sense having borders. Economically it would be better for every country to have more open borders. But of course, historically, through various geopolitical reasons, we have national borders that sort of define identities, national identities. And so we cannot reverse the geopolitics of borders. So we have to live with these borders, but we can certainly make them softer in the sense we can have more trans-border cooperation, more trans-border projects, more trans-border economic projects. By having that sort of interchange, we can soften them. That is crucial also in terms of peace building. So for instance, if you look at Israel, Palestine and Jordan, one way of establishing peace in the region is to actually have a lot of these trans-border cooperative projects where you have Jordanians and Palestinians and Israelis all working together. So even though politically no one's talking to each other, on the ground, if there are these trans-border economic projects, people are talking to each other. And this is a trust-building measure that then can potentially trickle up and have political effects in the long run.
For Professor Leuenberger, I would hope that you have the opportunity to join Chiaretto Yen sometime in the beautiful city of Xi'an, but then you'd have a chance to go to see one of the great ancient borders, the Great Wall of China.
Oh, I'd love to see the Great Wall of China. Yes, I've read so much about its impact, having looked at sort of walls historically and their impact. Yes, this of course is the ultimate wall that we all need to understand.
Yeah, you're most welcome. I used to live in Shanghai, but these days I'm teaching in Xi'an and also in Beijing. When you would like to come, I would like to join you.
Oh, I would love to. Yes, one day, hopefully, when we can travel again.
Yeah.
When listening to all just the discussion, I'm just thinking, just an insight about stories or narratives, because it seems that how to show benefits, right, of open borders, immigrants, or how to show, in my cases, young and old living together, or stories, which I'm right now doing about stories of actualizing aging group. They are healthy, but they are towards leaving the legacy of life because of the empowerment of faith and culture, etc. So it seems that we can do small steps, starting from small steps. Obviously, of course, we have research, we have concept, but then it seems that from the research to the concept to realize and have the advocate or promotion of what we are right now doing, like a common home, right? We would like to have the resources shared. We'd like to, because cross-border, that talking about people living together with different cultures, or young and old living together in different ages. So this diversity in inclusion will be a challenge for many people. Right now, we own our resources. We don't want to share it because we are afraid of minimizing my benefit. But when we know there are stories, people are sharing, but like magics, like more, better. It's not just myself, and I can train up or grow people that can, like a mutuality, mutual benefits, then create this common home better. So I was just thinking that, of course, I'm doing more qualitative research, but of course, quantitative with data, statistic to show is also important about this real life. In Oxford, there's a how should I say, a diocese priest. She started from asking a question of the elderly mother, why dying alone, etc. Then create a research to ask people to come together to talk about preparing well, dying well, and then found out a lot of people would like to have a comfortable place to talk about it. And after some funding, this research becomes a death life program. So I was just thinking from research or what we are doing to some work benefits a lot of people. That will be most probably the direction as well. Yeah.
I saw a question here, and I'll ask from Emmanuel asking how technology should be transferred from rich country to poor countries. Why there's war, trade war, all kinds of war going on, tensions between US and China. I think one way is to have more positive narratives, no? And I think what Pope Francis is doing and in proposing this integral approach to problems and many things could be done in a global level, global governance for cyber security, for world peace, and I think we can all work from that. We start from our own circle, you know, giving positive news and experiences and narratives. I think this could be one contribution we can bring about.
Mm-hmm. Can I come in on this one a second? Because I'm actually working with a community in South Kivu in the DRC, and they don't have a lot of resources. And I speak to some of my local colleagues there, and it's very important to not just talk about technology transfer, but rather to really be concerned with what is actually needed by the locals, because oftentimes in the past, development aid brought in technologies that were not really useful for the locals in their particular context. So it has to be locally driven decisions about what sort of technologies are being adopted. And also there's a lot of technological potential within these communities. They often have their own very innovative solutions that we should then just support or maybe give funding to them so they can come up with their own innovative solutions, rather than always providing them with technologies which might not be suitable for that particular context. So it has to be really based on a sort of an interaction and finding a strategy based on communication, which is important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the one thing to stress is the technology or whatever means needed should be free, should be I mean, with this responsibility that for the common good and not for profit, when yeah.
One of our commentators has drawn our attention. Of course, the document Laudato Si has been particularly important in preparing for today, but one of our commentators has drawn our attention to the new document of Pope Francis, Fratelli Tutti, which came out on the 3rd of October, just a few days ago. And I know we might not have it right in front of us, but paragraph 125, this commentator is reading a bit faster than I am, where Pope Francis invites a quotation, I think, "Welcome to those in urgent need or work to improve living conditions in their native lands by refusing to exploit those countries or drain them of their natural resources or backing corrupt systems that hinder the dignified development of their peoples." I think that while we've generated this symposium out of Laudato Si, Fratelli Tutti is going to provide us with some extra thinking space as well. There are a couple of questions on that have come up in the chat room directed to previous speakers. I think we can possibly try somehow later to bring those people back, or at least to get the comments to them. But we're coming to the end of our time now, and I'd like to express my thanks to you. There is a little break at the moment, and then Edmund Eyre will come to give us his presentation. I'd like to thank you for the rich variety that you've brought to us, your comments when you've knitted each other's papers together a little bit, your abstracts, your thoughts have been bridge building for the rest of us. So thank you very much. We do have our break now, and that'll be, we gather together, gathering on the screen together at 11:45 Macau time. Okay, bye.